Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your reading. If you're new to the channel, I do timeless readings, which means that whenever you find this video is when you're meant to hear the messages within it. And in case you subscribe, I upload my new videos for Gemini and Sagittarius on Wednesdays. So I do just want to let you guys know that the deck that I'm using today is called the Ludi Lescott Tarot. And as always, if you guys are interested in getting a personal reading, my information is in the description below. I have a lot of cards that jumped out here, but a little bit of insight as to how I shuffle my cards. Usually, I'll have a couple cards that like to flip over in the deck. I see them, however, I usually don't take them unless they jump out of the deck like these ones have. But sometimes they'll jump out in groups that are too big, and at that point I'll usually just put them back in. But my main goal here is to get you guys roughly 8 or 9 cards, and then we can get started on your reading. So I'm just going to try to pull out 1 or 2 more cards, and then we can get started. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take these cards and move them over and take this 5 of Swords that came out and put it right underneath this 10 of Swords. But with these 8 cards ready, I do just want to let you guys know that in case you like the reading or if it really resonates with you guys, the best way to let me know is by leaving a like or a comment. But your overall energy here is the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man is a card about changing your perspective, right? So I think that with this Hanged Man and with this 2 of Cups in reverse, there might be some trouble in paradise right now, Sagittarius, because the 2 of Cups here is all about this energy of, let me turn down the light a little bit and see if that helps, is all about this energy of finding sort of nitpicking things in your partner, finding those like little things that end up bothering you. And it's like, oh, well, perhaps they weren't as like amazing as I'd first thought or something. But I feel like in retrospect, you start to look at those things that bother you, and then you realize that they're really not that big of a deal. I just think that it's kind of that disillusionment at the very first where you're like, turns out that they're not perfect, because I see this Emperor card here. And I'm getting 2 things here with the Emperor. It just kind of depends on what your particular identification with your energy is. But the Emperor to me is always that like masculine kind of energy. The like feeling of the provider, of like the person that goes out and does things right. And it doesn't necessarily matter. Basically what I'm getting at here is that whoever is this sort of more masculine energy, the other person perceived them, or rather you perceived whoever this person is, including if it's you, as being sort of like a perfect person. And now you're kind of getting into this 2 of Cups energy where you realize that things aren't necessarily perfect. Like there's flaws, and you're realizing that there can be some pretty like heavy damage that can be done in a relationship, because you have this 10 of Swords and this 5 of Swords. Now, the 5 of Swords is conflict. It's petty arguments. It's disagreements. And I feel like sometimes it's also unsportsmanship. It's like taking a molehill and turning it into a mountain, right? So there's, I think, some small things here that are kind of shaking up your worldview when you know, you're probably giving them a little bit more importance than they probably need, right? So I'm getting also, like, I've given that example of, you know, linked to masculinity, but more than that here with this Emperor, the Emperor is basically shy of like the perfect representation of masculine energy, right? So sometimes when they're a little bit lower vibrational, they have that tendency, emperors do, well, not emperors, but like people who are fitting kind of into that mold, they have the tendency to be flirts, right? So I'm thinking for some of you guys, you might be in a relationship or talking to somebody or just know somebody who you have feelings for, that they're a little bit too much on the like flirty side, that they want multiple people. They're trying to feed their ego in that regard. And I feel like that's kind of led to a lot of this Ten of Swords energy where you feel heartbroken, betrayed, maybe even backstabbed, because it looks like somebody here is getting hurt and the other person is, you know, very distraught that this is happening, but it's like somebody is being betrayed here. And I feel like it's this energy that leads to these kinds of arguments, these disagreements, and these petty energies, because it feels like in the back of them. Also, I looked at the timer just now and it was at 555. So for some of you guys, that number might be very important. Do make sure to look up any synchronicities because they'll help you figure out exactly what's going on, because those are messages that you're getting from your angels. But like I was saying, like this is the energy that's leading to this kind of disagreement, this petty, this just like energy of like a tit for tat, because that's what I get here with this 10, or rather the 5 of Swords. The Ten of Swords is just that pain, that devastation, that agony. And it's very interesting because there is that sort of discrepancy between the words that I'm using, right? With the 5 of Swords, it feels like tit for tat, you know, petty, like those are like small things, whereas this feels big. So it feels like somebody who might be experiencing these like smaller things as like a bigger deal than the other person, right? And I don't know if I articulated myself well there, but I feel like there's two people. One of them is doing something that's hurting the other person, but to the first person, they're not that big of a deal, but the person that's getting hurt, it's a really big deal. So I think that if you just take the time to do a little bit more communicating and kind of figure out where the boundaries lie, it'll help you a lot, because I see the Ace of Wands with the 3 of Cups. So this 3 of Cups to me celebrates a reunion. And I feel like it's not even necessarily that both of you have like left and gotten back together, although that might be the case. It more so feels like, how should we say, a metaphorical reunion to where you guys are no longer fighting. I feel like there's been conflict and there's been arguments, and now that you're kind of working past that with this new beginning, it feels like you're going into this period where it feels like you're back together, kind of in quotation marks, if that makes sense. And I feel like that all comes as a result of this overall energy, which is the Hanged Man, which is all about changing your perspective. So I'm thinking that if you and your partner both allow each other to listen to each other and really try to understand each other, you're going to have a change of perspective, and that's going to allow you to be able to communicate better and all around understand each other, right? I know that I'm being very like talk to each other in order to understand each other. Like it's very, I don't want to say obvious, because it can, you know, be one of those things where there's a lot of confusion and miscommunication because we don't know what we don't know, right? So I hate to be like Captain Obvious again, but we won't know what we don't know until we talk about it. And I feel like that's where you need to really start, because I'm seeing the 6 of Cups, 6 of Pentacles, which is all about generosity and charity. And I feel like in this case, it talks about generosity with your words, generosity with how you feel. I feel like if you guys are just very generous and willing to say how you feel and willing to explain things that might be obvious to you, but may not be obvious to them, that'll allow you to be able to, you know, understand each other, and it'll bring forth this stability, because I'm seeing the Knight of Pentacles, which is a message that comes with stability, but I don't think it's necessarily like one message. I think that with every single quote unquote message that you guys give each other, the conversations, the talks, the like little nuggets of this is how I'm feeling, that's going to bring you closer and closer to stability, which I feel like you may have not been facing right now. I feel like there's been some instability because of this 2 of Pentacles, this like criticism between partners, this betrayal, this energy of petty arguments. I'm sorry, I heard like a really weird noise coming from outside my window, but it feels like that's kind of confirmation of the fact that something that may not be a big deal can really like elicit a much larger response in someone else. But like I was saying, Sagittarius, just to summarize, communication is key, and that'll lead to a lot more understanding between partners. But that was your reading first time around, Sagittarius. If you enjoyed, please leave a like or a comment because it really helps out the channel, and I personally really love to know if these readings resonate with you guys. But like I said before, I upload my new videos for Sagittarius on Wednesday. But in the meantime, you guys are more than welcome to watch any of my other timeless readings that I have up on the channel. And with that being said, I hope to see you guys next time for your next reading.